Wiggins is a bad basketball player. He's owed $95 million over the next 3 years, starting next year. It's unspeakable they did this. Listen, people think I dislike the Warriors. There's things they've done that have irritated me. But going into this year, I said I thought they could be the 6th seed. I thought that if Clay came back at the end of the season, they could be dangerous. And that starting next year, we'll see if they can rejuvenate the old Splash Brother 15-16 team and be dangerous. It's over for them now. We will never see Steph in another NBA Finals, ever.
This is Nick Wright on February 7th, 2020. On February 6th, 2020, the Warriors had made a trade which sent D'Angelo Russell, Omari Spellman, and Jacob Evans to the Minnesota Timberwolves in exchange for Andrew Wiggins, a 2021 top 3 protected pick, and a 2021 second-round pick. And this is him saying that this move was so bad that it was difficult to put into words and that there was absolutely no way that it would work out. Well then. And not only that, because the initial take is so infamous at this point, the other half of the take usually gets lost.
And you can say, oh, well, now they have their top 5 pick. If Minnesota's terrible next year, a good pick there. Man, young players do not help you in the playoffs, unless you're the Raptors. The last young player to make a big impact in the NBA Finals prior to the Raptors was Kawhi 7 years ago. I can't believe Bob Myers did this.
That top 3 protected pick, the Timberwolves ended up losing, and it turned out to be Jonathan Kuminga, who is not necessarily a key piece, but is providing important minutes in certain matchups. This might be it. This might be one of the worst aged takes of the last 10 years. But that's not the only take we've heard over the last 2 or 3 years about the Warriors. So today, I wanted to take a look back at some of those takes, some takes from this season that are already cooked, and I also wanted to go over the finals matchup because these things are actually connected. So let's get into the video. It's 2022 and the Warriors are back. I, along with other people, called this multiple times. On July 23rd, 2021, I had a conversation with my guy Gio about the Warriors and what could be next. And that's when I decided to tweet this. This is easily the best take that I've ever had in my 22 years of existence on this planet. But it wasn't just a one-time thing. I've been preaching this since the start of the pandemic when I first started making YouTube videos. And now it's finally coming to fruition. But most people outside of the fan base didn't really see what was coming. And it was getting to the point that we were seeing legitimate conversations about trading Stephen Curry. Yes, that Stephen Curry. But believe it or not, these have actually been going on since Kevin Durant was still on the roster. This is one that I found from November 15th, 2018, proposing the same question. This is just something that's been constant. The dynasty is over, so X players should leave. First, it was Klay Thompson in free agency of 2019, when Klay's deal was taking just a little bit too long to be announced, and so people started saying that Klay was going to go to the Lakers. And then he re-signed. And then last season, after Steph played with LeBron in the All-Star game and then came back down to earth the very next game he played, people started saying he was going to go to the Lakers as well. These narratives have been the absolute worst because it's just things that we shouldn't even be wasting our time talking about, and yet we do anyway. But the one narrative that's been constantly talked about in the last few years is one that is finally going to be accurately put to the test over the next 2 weeks. The Warriors needed KD and are never winning without him. I should preface this by saying that the rest of this video is not coming from a place of anger or hate or resentment or anything like that. I just never understood the logic behind it. Because the entire reason that people were so angry when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors was because he joined a team that just went to the finals twice and won 73 games. That was the talking point. KD joined a 73-9 team. Then over the next few seasons, it kept pinballing back and forth between 2 major talking points that completely contradict each other. Number 1, the Warriors are stupidly overpowered and unfair. Number 2, the Warriors wouldn't have won if it wasn't for injuries. And I have to ask, if the team is so stupidly overpowered to the point where the rings don't even count anymore, then how can you possibly say in the same breath, oh, if Kawhi was healthy, oh, if Chris Paul was healthy? Those 2 things cannot be right at the same time. That was one of the things that has always bothered me because they don't align whatsoever. The injuries wouldn't have mattered if the team was so great, but I digress because, like I said before, we're in the middle of the ultimate test of the Kevin Durant Golden State narrative. The Warriors have already worked to destroy the narrative by making the finals once again without him. This is their 6th finals in the last 8 years, and this is the 3rd finals they've made without Kevin Durant in the picture. Technically 4th if you want to count 2019 when they made the finals after he got injured. This narrative never had any legitimacy when you just took the time to break it down, but now it's on the brink of never being brought up ever again. Because not only are they currently back in the finals, their matchup is the Boston Celtics. The same Celtics team that shocked us all by sweeping the Brooklyn Nets in the first round of the playoffs, while also holding Kevin Durant to arguably the worst playoff series of his entire career. It was so bad that I had people in my comments wondering if he was actually dealing with some sort of injury, but that isn't the case. The Celtics simply played some of the best defense on him that we've ever seen, taking away his spots as much as they could, sending multiple defenders to prevent him from working one-on-one. They even built a wall at times, which is something that we might expect for a player like Giannis, but not for a perimeter-oriented player like KD. It was just a masterclass all around, and even after that series and throughout the playoffs, we've been seeing the Celtics validating the defense that they were able to put together in the second half of the regular season. Because while their offense has struggled at times, their defense has been the reliable thing that they've fallen back on, as with any championship caliber team. Which then brings us to the matchup, because throughout the last few days, we've been hearing so much about how incredible the Celtics defense has been that we're forgetting that the Golden State Warriors had the exact same defensive rating in the regular season. The exact same. This is also something that the Warriors have been priding themselves on, even going back to last season when the offense wasn't there. You can really only point to one game in this entire playoffs in which the defense just straight up didn't show up, and that was of course the infamous Game 5 against the Memphis Grizzlies, which was probably the most pathetic effort I have ever seen from this team in a playoff game. But again, other than that one game, they've given problems to every single team they've faced in almost every game. And that brings me to the last narrative, or narratives, because throughout the playoffs, we've heard many doubts about the Warriors' defense and how exactly they would be able to contain the teams they were facing. In the first round against the Denver Nuggets, the argument was the Nuggets are taking them to 6 or 7 games because, quote, who do they have for Jokic? And then they won in 5 games. They then advanced to the second round and faced the Memphis Grizzlies, and the argument was, who do they have for Ja? And then they won in 6 games. Okay, calm down. Calm down. I know what you're saying. Just bear with me, okay? I'm explaining. Then they advanced to the conference finals and faced the Dallas Mavericks, which I still cannot believe that was the matchup, but once again, I digress. That's a conversation for a different day. Then the conversation became, who do the Warriors have for Luka? And they once again win in 5 games. And the key thing that all these series had in common was that all these players are less than ideal on defense. And the Warriors did their absolute best to involve all 3 players in as many actions as physically possible to make them work on defense, which would in turn tire them out and take away their offensive abilities. The Grizzlies matchup is obviously the special case because Ja got injured in Game 3. However, the Warriors still had that matchup under control. They didn't target Ja as much on defense, they just looked at him and said, you do you. If you need to score 50 to beat us, then go ahead. And he did. But just barely in a game the Warriors still frankly should have probably won had they not made some mistakes in the last few minutes. So it wasn't even really a convincing win, even though he had 47. And they tired him out that way. In Game 3, he was playing amazing before he got injured, and the Warriors were still up by 20. And you can say, oh, well, he still got hurt, you don't know what would have happened. I can say the exact same thing about him being there, because while I'm not arguing whether it would have taken Golden State more or less games to win the series, it was a fact that the Grizzlies throughout the regular season were much harder to guard when Ja wasn't on the floor. And this isn't a take coming from me. This is a take coming from Draymond Green.
I think for us, what we have to realize is this is not the same team we were playing to start this series. And so you almost have to make the adjustment in this series for us as if we're starting an entirely different series. That's kind of where we're at now. Is like you kind of have to rethink the whole game plan because our game plan was built around Ja Morant. And it's not that anymore. And they're a totally different team. They're a totally different team without Ja. More guys touch the ball. You got to account for more guys on a normal basis. Stuff of that nature. So we have to approach this next game as an entirely different series. And what adjustments are we making from series to series?
So you see where I'm coming from. Guarding an entire team is completely different from focusing so heavily on 1 or 2 guys, which brings me back to the finals again. Like I said, everything is connected in some way, shape, or form. Because the defense that I'm describing is the way the Celtics have been playing in their matchups in the Eastern Conference, because frankly that's been the best option was to focus on the 1 or 2 key players. But now with Golden State, State, they need to guard everyone on ball and off ball at all times, and I don't know how that's going to work out, because while they are a pretty experienced playoff team, they have zero experience in the finals, so I'm interested to see how they respond. But in my eyes, the advantage goes to Golden State because their core has faced every scenario imaginable, and on top of that, they've needed to adjust to a few different teams just in this playoffs, so I give them the edge there. But the narratives will still have you thinking that the Warriors can't keep up because the Celtics are a juggernaut on defense, which they are, but so are the Warriors. To be completely honest, I obviously want to win number 4, but just being back in the finals feels like validation because of the talks that we've been hearing over the last few years. Even just 2 months ago, when things like this were still being said on TV.
Has the Warriors' window closed as serious title contenders with this revolving door of injuries?
Molly, the door is closed. Wow. And listen, this is
not aggressive
come on, JJ.
on a
Hear me out,
Tuesday.
JJ. This is not about anything that these guys can or cannot do. It is just the reality of the league that we all love and consume insatiably.
And fast forward to June, and now those same people are picking Golden State to win the title. It's just very interesting how things work out sometimes, which is why I want to see what happens in the series to find out exactly what the narratives are going to be in the end. Because if this series goes the way that I think it's going to be a very bad look. But that's about it for my ramble. I want to know what you guys think. Who do you have winning the finals, and in how many games, and also who's going to win finals MVP? By the way, we will get to that talk another day. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.